Now we want to see that you type in multipass find. Find, yes. And this gives you which images are available. And so now you say multipass help. And this gives you what commands you have available. And we want to essentially say multipass launch. And we need to be specifying one of the images. And I think you can say space LTS. So I hope that's the correct way of doing this.
Like that?
LTS, yes. LTS, yeah. So this downloads now the image from Ubuntu. This is something that I put into the documentation if you follow the documentation online. And it's supposed to be starting that, downloading that image. And then when it may already have downloaded it, I see you, and it's starting now, trying to start the image. So one of the things I would like you to do is there's something like a memory on activation monitor under Windows. I don't know how do you view this. There is a type here for search on the bottom. Type in Task Manager and start that thing. And we should be able to see memory allocation in this thing. Can we figure out how to do that?
Say more details.
More details. Yeah. Okay. So click more details. Yeah. Wonderful. Here we go. So now we see that your CPU is 34 and you have already 64% of memory. And so the other students, when we are working on these things, so sometimes you want to pop up such a tool just to see if you're running out of resources, which could be entirely be the case. So in your case, it's a little bit concerning that this loading takes such a long time. So I'm not that sure if there's an issue with. Can you find out how much memory you actually have on your machine?
Yes.
How much memory we have there?
16. Should be 16.
Yeah. Yeah. Going about 16, 15 usable. Okay, that seems good. So, but you're running Windows 10 Education. That's all good.
You need to select this turn Windows feature on and off. The next option which you see. Can you type in Hyper-V again? And select this option, turn Windows feature on and off, which is just below that. Yep. And there you will see a box for Hyper-V.
Yeah. So
yeah, can you go on the plus next to Hyper-V? Okay, so yeah, so we should be fine. Do you know if you have to actually, do anybody knows if you have to set a BIOS option? I had to actually set a BIOS option on my motherboard to activate Hyper-V for my son. So I don't actually own a machine, but I needed to make a modification to my BIOS.
I did, and Windows 10 actually blocks that from letting you access the BIOS unless you put into recovery mode. So some people might have to do that with the education version.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So if this doesn't work, she needs to go into the BIOS and activate it in the BIOS. But naturally, when you do this, you can't share your screen because you're in BIOS mode. So we can't help you really remotely to do that. So
no, I thought that was more a hardware restriction than so the recent CPUs, and they basically are Hyper-V enabled, right? So that's why Windows had it blocked in the older machines. In the newer one, from what I believe, you can enable them.
My motherboard was bought about a year ago, and it was switched off on my motherboard, and I had to actually switch it on. So the other thing is since we can't figure out how to do Hyper-V now, you have to figure out how to do VirtualBox. So Sarah, the one thing that you need to then do is install VirtualBox, and then do a Google query and figure out in Google query how to use multipass with VirtualBox. and there you will find an instruction set on how to enable that.
Okay.
So right now I can't tell you why it doesn't work, because I don't have a computer in front of me, and I guess it's a BIOS setting. Did anybody else successfully install multipass on Windows?
We found out that you need to be installing the newest version of Windows in order to use multipass. That is version 19.09 so far.
So we have figured out that multipass works perfectly on Linux and it works perfectly on Macintosh. I think even one with Windows Home installed it, but they used VirtualBox for doing this. So,
Yeah, you have to download the VirtualBox and install it. And there is one setting where you say local driver is equal to VirtualBox.
I have a question. So what is the difference using multipass with VirtualBox and without? So if VirtualBox works, why don't we just use that?
Because Hyper-V is much faster.
Okay.
And one of the goals is for example, the student who has actually installed VirtualBox. What we want to do is we want to time the starting of the virtual machine in VirtualBox versus the start of the virtual machine in multipass via Hyper-V, so that we can verify that.
Mm-hmm.
So he is now doing the same thing. So he's now starting up this particular process, and so the idea is that we actually do an cloud on your computer. This way, you can actually develop something really quickly on your computer, even while you are not on the network, or when you, for example, have a work computer, you don't have to worry about that you go outside of your company thing. So now say multipass help.
Okay.
And now see, list all available instances. So we should be verifying if something started with multipass list first. Okay, so now we have actually two virtual machines. One is starting and then the other one is running. Both are 1804. So now we should be saying multipass, maybe shell, and then specify after that whatever name they give by default. You can also use the -- name option, I believe.
Yeah, this looks much similar to Docker containers, right?
That's exactly right. So, and now you are actually in the virtual machine. Now you can use Linux commands such as, for example, ls.
Oh.
And now you can say maybe
PWD.
PWD or uname -a. Uname space -a and then enter. And so what I want you to encourage now is that you have a Linux machine now here. We have a handbook that's called Linux for Cloud Computing. You look at that handbook and you learn a little bit Linux commands so that you know how to create a file and how do you do certain things and run a command here and those things. And we will be using this for you to learn a little bit Python programming. And one of the things that I want to share with you now is a little Python program to do exactly what we have done here. So say quit or exit. I've forgotten. And you're back in your thing. Say again the help. So the multipass help. I can't really remember all the options. And then there is one way of starting actually not an interactive shell, but run a program on this exec. See this thing? So now you say multipass exec, and then space, and then you say now here uname minus a. You may actually have to quote this. So put quotes around uname minus a. So now we try this out, and you see I haven't actually done this on the Windows machine. So maybe you have to do a backslash quote. I don't know. How do you do this in
double quotes?
Double quotes, okay. Just use then double quotes, please. Oh, you have forgotten to specify the name of the machine. So I bet with you have to put between exec and uname, because you have two machines up and running. If there would be just one, you probably can just do one. So then. Okay, so it doesn't find the uname command. So you need to be logging in back into your shell with multipass and figure out where the uname command is. So go with your cursor key up. You can use your cursor key to go back to the previous command.
Should be /sbin,
yeah,
right?
So yeah, that's what I was saying. Now you can say which uname, and it tells you where the uname command is located, and then enter. And it says in /bin. So exit this again. And now, yeah, you get my drift. Use your cursor key to go to the command that you had. And use /bin/ for uname. And then type in enter. I don't think you have to go to the end of the line. And see, we have still an issue with this, and maybe you have to do 2 backslashes because of Windows, and I don't know. So you have to figure this out. This is one of the things that you need to be figuring out, how to make that happen. Maybe it's a // in Windows. And this is one of your tasks. You have to figure this out.
I think it should be / or / the other way around, whatever it is, the single one, not the double.
Yeah, the other direction. It needs to be the other direction, but maybe // I don't know how Windows deals with backslashes on the command line. / bin. Go to the / and put a backslash in there. No, not there, one before.
Here?
I'm asking now to get request to your machine.
Okay.
Okay, so I really don't know how to do that. And this is one of your tasks to figure out. So one of the things that we want to next do is we want to develop a little Python program to start this from Python, okay? So can you open up an editor? So copy this line here, copy this entire line. Okay, can you copy this? And now open up your Python editor, or an editor where you can edit Python in.
I don't have anything installed in my Windows machine because I am doing on Linux.
Notepad?
Yeah, I have no.
Yeah, but we can't see it because you don't share your desktop.
Yeah. So, okay. So I will share.
Yeah. So we do this, and then we say Python a.py, and as you see, this actually does work, right? So the task that you now have is to write a function in multipasses, and list would be doing this function. Then you would be creating a function called shell, and in this thing you would be calling the multipass shell command. And this would be here, list would be multipass find. And so on. So, and then maybe you have a command that's called def exec. And then this would be doing the multipass exec. And then we pass a command in. And this command would be passed along here, this command.
I understand the Python syntax. I do have a question for us accessing it on our on our shell. Where should we be saving these Python files?
You put them into your GitHub repository.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and then hopefully you would do a better name than a.py. I just did a stupid example. But and this here is to identify with all the students that are right now online. If you have an issue with the syntax or with Python that we are using here, if you need to be raising your arm now, because we are setting up additional help hours for you. If you are having no issue with this, we are not setting up any additional help hours. That's how our class works. This class is not about you hiding your that you don't understand something, but you letting us know that you don't understand something so that we can actually figure out how we address that and give you help. Okay.
Actually, I don't understand what I understand the function structure, but I've never used things like this. The os.system.
Wonderful. That's exactly what I want you to tell me. So who is in that same situation? And yeah, we are calling a method in the class OS that's called system, right? You understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. So then it's for you to find out what os.system is actually doing, because we will be using this extensively in our class. And all those who have an issue with what I have said here today, they need to, for the next 2 weeks, look in our 2 books. The one is called Linux for Cloud Computing, where you learn Linux, which we are doing in multipass. And then the second one would be to identify gaps in Python that you may actually have. And you will have to start looking into the Python book for cloud computing that we have published. And in that, you should be focusing on the language features. And the most important language features that we will be using is functions, as we have here. And then we will be putting them in classes. So let me just do something like a little trick here, because I can't right now execute this in my system. But what I can actually do is I can do this here. I can do print list, and I can do print shell. And this is how I sometimes just debug things, and then print f run command. So naturally, when I now use here on the bottom something like this, run hello, and I were to executing this, I get my print statement if I were to not making a syntax error. And this is where pycharm typically helps you, prevents this error. So now I have this run hello, okay? So the next thing that we want to do is we want to actually introduce a class that we call provider. And this is a provider that has these functions included. And now we cannot run this anymore like this. We have to create a class. We have to create a provider, p equal provider. And now we call the class in this, like this. See, same result. However, all the methods are now included in one abstraction, basically in the class abstraction here under the name provider. Here I declare an object of that class type, and this is my variable, and this variable can now call each one of these functions.
Sorry, I used pycharm before in a data visualization class, and I took an operating system class before. So I have basics. I understand the function, how everything works. So would that be enough? Of course, I will do my study of Python and operating systems. So would that be enough?
Yeah, I pointed out before, this class has been taken by students that have had absolutely zero programming knowledge. They have never programmed before in their entire life, and they got an A+ in class. The reason why they got an A+ in classes is because they admitted I didn't know that, and we provided extra hours for them. Okay.
Okay.
So this is what this class is about here. I'm asking the question, not what you have done in other classes. I'm asking the question is if you understand what you currently see here on the screen. Yeah. So, like for example, how would you, for example, do the list command? p.list. Right. So if I execute this, I should be able to see also p.list, right? And so why is it not working? So no student in class understands the error that appears, right?
I want to see. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
because you didn't add self.
Okay.
Okay, so now I hear the relief on my side that after I've given you the solution, there are actually some people who actually understand what this is. Okay. So now, who in this class does not understand what that self is?
So what I understand is self is reference to its own object.
Yes, that's exactly correct. Yeah.
Okay. If that is the thing, then I understand.
Yeah. So this is just a classical Python object where the methods are being included in that object. It's essentially a class. This is object-oriented programming in Python. And one of the things is when you're working with our codes, at one point you will have to understand this logic. This logic can be understood in 10 minutes, but I need to be knowing whom should I be assigning some additional assignments. But you will see that you have to, with me, be honest about your knowledge, because I'm going to be adapting the class based on your knowledge. If you don't have certain knowledge, I will be changing the structure of the class to, for example, for those people who don't have actually Python knowledge, I will be giving them an advice of how do you catch up with Python. And it looks like that all of you that are listed here have to urgently revisit a Python book or the Python lectures that the Python book that we gave out. And you don't have to know everything about Python, but one of the things is you actually have to understand this little program. I will be posting this as part of the lecture notes at one point, and then ask another question to everybody in the poll. if you understand the self, and then it is your responsibility to find the time to understand this little program here. As you can see, this is like 20 lines of program. You should be able to understand this, right? And so you will have to learn how to do this. You're smart enough to have passed the Python courses. You're smart enough to have taken management access and data visualization classes. So you will be smart enough to understand this. This is really trivial here. When I have a more complicated program here, like for example, this particular program here, this is the same program that you just saw there, but for OpenStack and not for multipass. And because multipass is so super simple, we can teach you how to develop these providers. For example, find a machine or upload some data to the cloud, or I have here even a create function. And this is all about just starting the right thing. So here you, for example, have a start function. And so what we do actually, as you saw, is the OR system call. We just have to sometimes define like 2 or 3 functions, and then the thing just falls magically in place and does something. So like, for example, I can show you on my computer when I say, I can actually set my cloud, CMS set cloud equal to Chameleon. And this is the Chameleon cloud you have actually gotten an access to. And what we will be doing as part of the class, we will be developing programs that actually do this, but we will have CMS set cloud equal multipass. And then what we then do is we list, for example, the images that are available on that particular cloud with CMS VM list. So this would be giving me the list, for example, of the virtual machines that are actually running on that cloud. And because I just need to make this a little bit smaller because there's a lot of information being there. And as you can see, there are 2 virtual machines running on this thing. I can see, for example, what kind of sizes I can actually do in this particular the cloud. I can say CMS image list, I believe, minus refresh. So it goes out to that particular cloud and tells me what kind of sizes I can get, or what kind of images I can start. And you can see here the different images. And what we do in multipass, you have 2 images, right? And here on Chameleon Cloud, we have a lot more images. If we go then later on in the class to Amazon, we have 92,000 images. And we need to be selecting from the 92,000 the images that we would really like to have. And here we can, for example, see the flavors. And what we do with multipass is we program this environment while using multipass and essentially simulate a cloud environment locally on your computer, because it's so much faster than if I were to go, for example, in these things. And then the easy thing is when we go out and want to start, for example, a virtual machine, I can say CMS VM boot, because I've selected Chameleon Cloud as my default cloud. I say CMS VM boot. What we will do in this particular class, you can switch between the clouds. You can say, switch my cloud to Amazon, and then I still can say CMS VM boot, but I'm booting then in Amazon. This one boots now here in Chameleon Cloud. And I can switch to Azure, then I would be booting in Azure. I can switch to Oracle, then you can boot in Oracle. And as you understand this, is if you are a vendor, you don't actually teach people how to do booting of images in other vendors' clouds. But we, at this particular class, we can boot in any arbitrary cloud, and we teach you how to actually program this. And the multipass environment is such an easy environment for us to initially jumpstart you in this way of thinking, and then you can develop these programs fairly easy within like minutes, basically. And So here you can see, for example, it takes a long time to start up a virtual machine on Chameleon Cloud. But if you do this actually locally on your computer, it is much, much faster. And again, you know, I can't show you this in this particular environment because I have super user administrative rights switched off, and I'm currently creating a machine in my office that actually has sudo privileges enabled. So therefore, I can't actually show you this. But when I'm now here in pycharm, one of the things I can do is I can right-click, and I can click on Inspect Code. And one of the things that actually comes in here is it shows me a lot of errors, for example, here. 17 errors here, and I can actually go there and I can say reformat this file. And these are not just errors, but also syntax guides, because if I'm developing with multiple people together, we want to actually always have the same syntax guides. And if I'm now saying again, inspect code, that particular error that I just had has been removed. So I can go over here, can look at this. As you can see, there's now only this particular error here. I can double click on this. I see, okay, there's an empty line in here. I do the inspection again of the code, and hopefully that particular error is now removed. And as you can see, this is removed, and only errors are being reported that something is too long. You know, I can go in here, I do this. I can right click here, for example. I can do reformat code. And if you see here, the syntax is now automatically corrected for me. And now if I were to rerun this thing, see the first line, the second one is 103. If I rerun this, inspect code again, I click on this here, the 84 lines was being removed. So, and I can naturally set the line length differently. The important thing is this also includes errors for your documentation when you later on in the project. So you, for example, see that there's here in this particular line, name, port, protocol, and IP range. As you can see, here's name, port, and description. So the protocol and IP range is not being documented, but description, which is not actually part of this. So I can go ahead and look into my doc strings and see, you know, what do I have to actually do in order to fix my documentation nicely. And so it actually assists you in doing this. Then it, for example, has type checkers, because Python is a language that doesn't actually use data types, but I can technically take a look at, you know, are there actually any useful helps for me, provided that say, hey, I need to be looking a little bit closer as a type, or I may have some variables that might be referenced before they are declared and stuff like this. And so so pycharm really helps you improving your code. It even tells you, hey, this code is unreachable. You know, should that actually be the case? And here you can see, for example, that in this case, the rename of my virtual machine is not implemented. So at one point, I actually have to implement that particular code. And so I can utilize pycharm easily for developing better code in Python. So this is the reason why I use actually pycharm for this. Visual Code has something similar, but with the formatting here, that's actually super useful, because if you use Visual Code and do formatting, and then pycharm and do formatting, you may actually override each other's code formats, and then you do back and forth. That's the reason why in most cases I prefer that we are using pycharm. So this is the reason why I'm using actually pycharm. I haven't actually talked much about the class and the assignment. You know that all our class lecture notes are easily to find. We go in the resources, and in resources, you, for example, find the Python for Cloud Computing book, and you start this up with EPUB. It's important that you have an EPUB reader And remember that the books may actually change on a weekly basis. So what I do is I just don't store them actually anymore locally. I just click on this and then it downloads it here into Google Chrome, as you can see. And then I just click on this and I have configured it in such a form that the EPUB reader pops up on the file that I've just downloaded. And so what you need to be doing here is all those who have actually difficulties with Python, there's section number 5. You urgently need to be looking over this. There are only 2 sections that we really need to intensely look into. The one section is about data types, where we need to be understanding what actually a list is, what sets are, and what dictionaries are. And the dictionary is the data structure that we will be using the most. Okay, so anything we will likely do in dicts, because everything that we do between your local computer to the cloud is typically formulated in dicts. Later on, we will teach you about how to convert them to JSON objects. In addition to that, you don't have to look into fancy things like Lombard expressions. They're actually anyways too complicated, so you don't want to do this. But you need to be learning how to do a class. And the example I just gave you is really something that you need to be looking into. So that's one of the easy to understand mechanisms. So what I would really like everybody to do is that don't actually know about this in Python, learn this for next week, so that you can, next week, we will be starting to program this program here. We will give you this as an example, and I will try to make sure I have a computer by that time that actually has administrative rights so that I can actually showcase you the OS calls that we actually have, okay? Some other things that we have is we have actually a fairly extensive library that's called Cloud Mesh. We can say, for example, import. Oh, actually, let's do this from cloudmesh.common.util import banner. And so instead of print, I could, for example, now say here, banner. And if I execute this, let's go back to the program, Python a.py. Oh, that way I shouldn't have done that. And now you see, for example, here, there's this banner automatically coming in. And we will be giving you a couple of other cool commands, such as benchmarking, where you can automatically benchmark codes and print out that particular benchmark, and also inspect your Python environment and see if this is all correct and so forth. And so this is what we will be doing. I need to be making sure that I don't lose you immediately or don't make it too boring for you. So if you all know of this stuff, you can actually work ahead with me. If you don't know this stuff, I will work with you to catch up. So that's important to know, okay? Here, by the way, the virtual machine has been booted, and then I can say, at one point SSH, but I have to wait. So this may actually not work because the virtual machine is not yet up and running. Yeah, so it's not yet up and running. Now, for one of the other things that we need to do is we need to do some writing in Markdown. Markdown is actually relatively simple. I have a video recording from yesterday that you can leverage. And in that, we really just discuss the syntax that is there for doing Markdown. And the format is really super trivial. We have here given an example. And this is how you are actually doing your homework assignments with the data center assignment, and do this. Based on what I've seen today here, I think it's less important to work on the data center assignment. I will maybe postpone the deliverables because I see that many people still need to be catching up a little bit on their Python knowledge. And so I encourage you to open up your Python knowledge. One thing which is important about this particular classes, and I say this every time we meet, this class does require 6 hours constant work per week to achieve a really good grade at minimum. So now, naturally, those who don't have done Python, I would recommend that you spend maybe an hour or 2 hours more per week to learn a little bit more Python, right? But as you know, we only have 2 concepts that you seem not to understand. Concept number A is dictionaries that you need to be knowing, which I haven't checked if you understand it yet. And then the second concept would be classes. So your task for this week is, in addition to the assignments that we are doing, make sure that you learn Python a little bit for doing classes. So Markdown is relatively simple. One error I always see is people don't do empty lines. If you have a heading, there's an empty line behind, empty line behind, empty line behind. If you have a paragraph, there's an empty line after the paragraph. If you have a horizontal rule, there's an empty line after the horizontal rule. If you have a bulleted list, what is before the bulleted list? Anybody sees the pattern?
Empty line.
Yeah. If you have an image, if you have another paragraph integrated, what do you have in front of it? See anybody? Empty line. What do you have after it?
Empty line.
What do you have before a program code? Empty line. What do you have after a program code? Empty line. Right? So what do you have before an image? Empty line. What do you have after an image? Empty line. What do you have before a quote? Empty line. What do you have after a quote? Empty line. Having said this, 90% of all students from the last class did not include the empty lines. So that's the reason why I do this. So I hope you guys are having now figured out how to do this. Now, how do you find out actually how this actually looks like? You saw the text here, but you can also go in our repository while simply clicking on, for example, this cloud. And from the EPUB, you will be redirected automatically into the cloud. And then the tendency is big to just paste and copy from here to wherever you do, but that's wrong. You have to go to raw, and then you see the raw markdown, and then you can paste and copy from here. Okay? Any questions for this?
Yeah, where exactly are we going to use this? The markdown.
You will be not writing anything in LaTeX, in Word, or any other word processing system. All your documentation and your reports will be written in Markdown.
Okay.
And the reason why this is the case is this is the most trivial format, and I've actually taught this to elementary school students. So since I know that elementary school students actually understand this, I am 100% sure that anybody in this class will be able to understand this, and they will have no issue. So where do we use this, for example? My handbook is written actually in Markdown. So let me demonstrate this to you. And I apologize that the class is a little bit longer. So here we go for the books, resources. So we are in Piazza resources. And now we need to, for example, do the multi-pass assignment, which you have been taught in the lecture notes. You know, when you go to the lecture notes, there is for week number 2, the multipass assignment, and it says here, locate the section about multipass in the book, cloud computing. So, okay, I go to that thing, great, cloud computing, I open up my EPUB. It takes a little bit time to download this because this is a little bit bigger book. And now I can go to the table of content and find, for example, multipass with even a search function. So Control F, say multipass. It's section number 8.4. So I go to the section number 8.4. So I scroll over there. And here you find the section that we do in multipass. The reason why I can't give you page numbers is because I can resize the pages and they are automatically adapting. And one nice thing about the EPUBs is these code examples, they can be scrolled in case they don't fit on the page. So you can see the entire example. And one of the tasks is to figure out, how do you install multipass on your system? And, how do you essentially launch an Ubuntu machine, for example, and correct with us this particular example. Now, this example has already been contributed to by some students, for example, but the Windows, I haven't republished this yet, but you can look at the newest version of this. If you, for example, go to the cloud, that's here on the multipass section. So I click on this, I open this, I jump to the multipass section, and this is where the multipass section is, here, described. And here you can already see that we have the Windows section contributed. So one of the homework assignment is already done by another student. Another one is not yet done. This is how do you install multipass and make it work? And as we have seen from today, it seems not to be that straightforward to get your Windows machine to use multipass. Sarah, I believe, had an issue. So we need to be figuring out how to do this. And we found out now, so this is why don't you use VirtualBox, because one of the students seemed to be using VirtualBox. So there are different ways of how to install multipass on Windows. One is with Hyper-V, the other one is with VirtualBox. One of the things that we noticed is when we put the documentation together, a student describes how it works on his computer, but that's not what the task is. The task is how do you install multipass on Windows, where one of the solutions is how you do it on your computer. So what you should not do is override other people's solutions if they actually work for them. So we have to have here, essentially, how do you install multipass on Windows 10 Home? How do you install Windows multipass on Windows EDU and Windows Pro? How do you enable Hyper-V on your Windows machine if you're using the Hyper-V kit? And how do you enable the VirtualBox thing? Remember also that I've already posted the solution basically to this in here on how do you set actually the local driver. So you need to be reading this particular chapter in order to succeed to this and contribute and improve. Now, how do you improve? Well, in this particular case, I said let's discuss first on Piazza, because if you were to click on this link here and make modifications to it, you may actually override other people's modifications. So just be careful that you, for this particular assignment, don't do this yet. Discuss first the thing. But this is the reason why we use Markdown. Everything in this entire book that you see is written in Markdown, and you can improve it.
So the multipass, are we introducing this year, or was it done even before?
It was in December last year, and this is the very first time we do it in this class.
Correct. Okay.
And the reason we do it actually is because it's much easier to set up multipass than it is actually to set up VirtualBox, as far as I've been told. Mm-hmm. And on my Linux and on my OS X machine, it is the case. It is much easier to set up. Only thing is you have to have administrative privileges. If you don't have administrative privileges, you can't do it. And then, so one of the other things is when you take other classes at Indiana University, they do something different. They don't teach you this. They have other goals. They use Anaconda. And in the other class I've already mentioned, there will be, for everybody who's using Anaconda for Python, you will be asked to write 2 paragraphs why Anaconda should not be used in the cloud. Paragraph. Or what's the disadvantage of using Anaconda in the cloud?
you need to, you will not know this next week, but you may know this at the end of the semester. So then you can go into your professor for machine learning class. Hey, you know, because I understand why you're using Anaconda, but if I want to use an AI service in the cloud, I better don't use Anaconda.
What I see on their website when I'm trying to download the exe, it says that Windows 10 Home with VirtualBox. It doesn't say Windows 10 Home with Hyper-V.
Wonderful.
So is that the reason?
Maybe that's the reason why it doesn't work with Hyper-V. So,
yeah.
So I found this one here. So I actually Googled for this, and remember, I don't have a Windows machine, so it's up to you to figure out if this works on your machine or not.
Okay.
You know,
yeah, I see it says,
so if I do this and type this in, I get the instructions for this, and it says this instructions for enabling and disabling VirtualBox support for Windows and Mac OS. And I found this this information. This makes me believe that you can actually use multipass with Hyper-V, because otherwise they wouldn't have this option.
Okay.
It says, however, you have to reboot the machine after you've done this option.
Actually, what I understood with this is that because definitely you should have Hyper-V when you are running on Windows, and Windows 10 Home does not have it. But in that case, you can change the back end to the VirtualBox, and if you want to change it back, then you can change to Hyper-V.
You know, I actually think it says there that it needs to be an admin PowerShell, and every time I've been able to use the Hyper-V with multipass, it's been through the admin PowerShell.
Yeah, that's
not
what I said before. Is you have to run this in administrative mode. So if you reboot, however, you are actually leaving from the session. So you may want to try it afterwards. So the big question mark is can we use multipass on Windows? I think we have verified we can use it with VirtualBox. That's something that we have seen today. The question is can we use it with Hyper-V? And that's an open question to the class. This is an exercise. This is a homework assignment. You figure it out. If you spend 50 hours on this, I wouldn't. If you spend 2 hours on this, that's very well. Remember, 6 hours time for this week's class is acceptable. So the other thing that we actually have not talked about was the data center section. If you go to our book, so the cloud computing book, you have a data center section pretty much at the beginning of the class. So when you go there, we have the overview that we did, and we have here the definition of cloud computing. So you should probably look into this a little bit, and then start reading the data center section. There are also here videos provided or presentations provided for you that you can look into, that you may want to pop up. And then what we did actually is we used to have this all as a video and as slides, but we found out that only 25% of all students actually looked at our videos. And so we felt a little bit, we're doing so much on the videos and no one's really reading this. So we have started to convert some of the videos and lectures into this book format, because we found it's easier to read this here than doing all the videos and the slides. And then you have also here, see figure 4, you can click on this, you have references properly integrated. And so this is actually much nicer to modify. And we update things if you find anything missing, or if you find something that needs to be added to this section. That's how you get your participation points. So, and the assignments are listed here at the end. the data center section. See, there's this exercises. And that's the reason why they're called E dot for exercise. And then you have maybe data center 1 and data center 2. And we would like you to do some of these data center sections assignments. They are all documented in our lecture notes here, in this lecture notes. So go in there, which one you have to do. So if you open this up here, you see, for example, do multipass 1 and multipass 5, which is in the cloud computing book. And you have the data center assignments 2A, B, 3, 4, 5, and then 8. And do them. Again, the multipass for you guys is at this time more important than the data center assignment. I may postpone the due date for an additional week on the data center based on the Python knowledge that lack that we have identified today.
So one quick question here, Professor. When reading the book, in case if you find some grammatical mistakes or something which you want to update, but what is the easiest way to do that?
Well, the easiest way is just as I documented. Just let's just do you have an error that you found?
I don't have it available right now, but I've seen it a couple of,
let me just demonstrate. So the easiest thing is let's assume here in this section, I find an error here in this thing. Then you scroll back till you find the first cloud. Then you click on the cloud and you open it. And this will give you the section where your error was supposed to be in, right? And then what I can do, for example, and this is, you know, I open up maybe Grammarly, and what I do now is I go here in raw mode. I copy this entire thing. I go here in my Grammarly subscription, and I copy this in here, and then I see many errors here that may have to be finger changes. Maybe the end needs to be modified here. So we found something. Maybe I want to write Docker capitalized. So I copy this now back. And the way I do this now is I go here in this thing here with the pencil, and I could be updating the whole thing or a simple error, you know. So this is like one character here, and then at the end you will find there's a submission button here, commit changes. Now I didn't make any changes here in this particular case, or maybe I do some changes now here, the end change, and I commit the change, and then a pull request is being created for me, and I will be seeing these changes here as pull requests. And you already see that some students have already done this. So they are already working here on, for example, the carbon footprint. So this particular student has already, or this particular student has provided an answer for multipass homework number 1. And I just need to be integrating that. Did you get what I do?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So in here, what I do is I then review the answer, and I compare this with if this is actually reasonable, and here this seems like reasonable to me, and then that seems like a good way of doing this. Okay.
So after you reviewed, should we close the pull request?
I've closed the pull request. So I do the review here. I simply say approve.
Okay.
I say submit. I use this now as an example. And now an automatic check is being done if this is all consistent. And then I merge the pull request. I confirm the pull request. So you don't have to do any of this one. Okay. I do that. So now it's integrated.
So I have a question. What about the notebook? I know this is a previous issue, but what about the notebook? Because I created my notebook and I was...
You are responsible for this yourself.
Oh, okay.
I'm not doing anything to the note. I will be writing at one point stuff into the notebook. So it's important that you stay in synchronization with what is actually in GitHub. At one point,
I think I have the same problem when I created the notebook. Then I came back the other day to my branch, to my repository. I didn't find it. I don't know how this problem happened.
That's Jasia, right?
Yes.
So we can take a look at that and then naturally help you. So we teach you how to do this. So, and I remember you did not actually have write access accepted, but you have not created a notebook.
Maybe there was something wrong, but I'm sure I created and wrote down even in it what I did that day. But I will create it like again to make sure.
Yeah, here you can actually do this, and there, see, create new file.
Yeah, I created here. And then I added the content that you said about, but I don't know what's happened. Maybe something wrong. I want to do it again.
The only thing that could go wrong is if you did not accept your invitations.
What's the where's the accept?
See here.
I don't think I did that.
See here. It's in your email box. If you can't find it in your email box, you just punch in /invitation. So everybody online, just do that. If you can't create your thing, so if you do that, you will see your invitation. So can you do this? And naturally, if you don't have any write access to your machine, yeah, you did not accept your invitation here. I can see this.
Okay.
That's the only reason why this didn't work. So we posted a comment to this in Piazza.
Okay, I will check it out. I will check it out.
Everybody do this right now. Say invitations here. Go to your HID directory and say invitations. And if you have still an invitation outstanding, you will be seeing it. And you need to accept it. There's a green button. Sorry, I forgot. I should have actually done that. I should have checked this before with all of you. Yes.
And Professor, are you going to have any section in your book which talks about GitHub in detail? I did not.
Yes, we actually do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
when I go to the invitation, as you did to the URL, I get an email says, sorry, we couldn't find the repository invitation. It is possible that the invitation was revoked or that you are not logged into the invited account.
Can you please share your screen?
That's the other problem. I don't have the Zoom, so I'm gonna try it.
We can't help you.
Cannot.
I'm sorry, but I can't help you.
Yeah, I know that. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I go to invitations, it goes back to my homepage. I mean, my HID.
That you already probably have accepted is. What HID do you have?
235. Oh, 223. Sorry.
223. Let me just go there.
So one follow-up question on notebook, the node.md. What are we expected to have there? Is it just what we did over the week?
Just what you did during the week. And I don't need to know. Is at 5 o'clock in the morning I got up and I worked on my program, and then I made myself some. I drank some soda to keep awake. So that's not what I want you to do. I want you to do is I worked on multipass. I got it to work. I didn't got it to work. Okay. So this way we can verify with you. This is because the TAs will be looking at the notebooks And we will be figuring out, do we need to do something different? Maybe we can't use multipass because it doesn't work, right? Maybe we have to do a different solution. And remember, multipass was only being available to us in this particular form since December, so we really don't know if it works or not.
Okay.
So this should not, if it takes you more than 2 minutes to fill this thing out, you really do something wrong.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Yeah.
Does it matter where you set your virtual environment folder?
It is easiest to do it in a folder in your home directory that's called env2. So in my case, it's here. env3, sorry. And the reason why this is the case is because all of our instructions are using that. So when you, for example, create Python virtual environment -m venv, we do this like this.
Are you sharing your screen, Professor? Because
sorry. Rahul has here a good example of how he tries out to with this thing. Just make sure when you next week, the new week doesn't come here on the bottom. It always comes on the top. The newest week always on the top.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So then the virtual environment, when you create this in Python, we don't want that you use the built-in Python environment, even if you're working on Linux or if you are working on a virtual machine. We prefer that you actually do create a virtual environment in these things so that you're not affecting in some unexpected way the pre-installed version of Python in your virtual machines or on your computer. So the easiest for us is if your virtual environment is in the home directory, and in the Windows, I think you have like C:user something, user, and then I saw maybe Rahul, and then so you go into that directory, and then in that directory you call this Python virtual environment command. Python. Actually, in my case, I have to say Python 3 -m venv, and then the env3. The other thing is this, Rahul, maybe we can use you. You can share your screen, right?
Yeah, I can.
Are you using pycharm? And I need you to browse to your, so go to the home directory, cd.
Maybe. ...
Now do a pwd. So this is your home directory. The first thing that you do is you create a directory in this thing that you called cm, mkdir cm. mkdir mkdir make directory space cm. Enter. Now you go into that directory. cd cm, yeah. Now you open up in your web browser your HID directory. So see the green thing there? The green clone directory. Click on this. Click the HTTP link. Yeah. Copy it. Go into the terminal. Now you say git clone, sorry, not checkout. Git clone. Control A. Oh, maybe you're in you're in Z shell. Okay, I'm not sure how to configure Z shell. Okay, so now if you make an ls, this directory is in there. So now you go to pycharm. And you say now here, I can't actually see this, but oh, there is actually open. Click on open under, yeah, click on this, open. And now, what was your, I don't know what that means, but I couldn't read that. So now you click on the directory CM that we just created. No, no. It's best not to, can you switch this into list mode rather than this GUI mode? Just show a list. Okay, good. So now, so you're standing in a CM directory and you say open. Oh, yeah, open, open. See, no, go back to, no. See this blue thing that's called open? Yes. Okay. So now this entire directory has been imported. So close the tabs. Now there's a triangular in front of the CM. Now you click on this guy, click on it. Now you go click on notebook, and you already see that you have done a mistake. So you copy the notebook, oh, right click, you say copy. Now you say past. Now you actually, the problem is that on Macintosh, you cannot rename it into a lowercase. You call it a.md. And you say OK. And then you say add this to your GitHub repository. Now you need to commit this. You right click on A. You go to Git. There's Git. You say commit file. And then renaming notebook to a.md. So what we are now doing is we are using Git from within pycharm. Okay, say commit. Commit. Now you right click that again. Now you go to Git. You go to repository, which is the last one. Now you say push. And then you do this. And one of the things that we actually forgot is we forgot to delete the notebook.md file. Say push. Now you type in your username and password. And naturally, this is not as complicated if you would have listened to us to name notebook.md smaller case, right?
Yes.
So punch in your username and password. Okay, you forgot that, okay? So you will be figuring this out at one point, but I think the people online get what you're currently achieving, right? Delete. There's a icon that's, yeah, delete. So say okay. Now you right click on the entire directory. You commit this, git commit.
Shouldn't we rename the a.md to notebook.md first?
It doesn't work on
delete. Okay.
on Macintosh, because Macintosh sometimes is configured in such a form that it uses a case-insensitive file system, or the case-sensitive file system. And I don't know what she has actually configured it in. So what we're doing is we're going the safe way. Instead of me figuring out half an hour what she has set up her system, and we are just going ahead and knowing a method that actually does work. So commit and push. Repository, push. And now you have to rename the A to notebook.md small and do the same process again. Good. Okay, so now your question.
Right. So looking at this, can we use the same process to update the books?
No. Yes, you can, but it's more complicated. The way you would have to do this is you have to create first a clone of the book into your own GitHub repository. Then actually a fork. You have to fork it. Then you have to create a clone. Then you have to make sure that the clone stays up to date with upstream. And then you fetch upstream, and then you make the edit. And from then on, you can actually always do the edit, but you have to always stay in synchronization with fetch upstream.
Yeah. Okay.
So so if you are a very versatile GitHub user, yes. If you have not used GitHub for more than 3 months or so, no. So I would actually simply say this is do the edit via the GUI.
Is this the extent we're going to be using GitHub? Like we're not going to be creating branches or anything?
You can create branches yourself in your own directory. You're responsible for that. But since you are the owner of this, you're completely in charge of what you do there.
Is it, the notebook is still capital. Don't push it yet.
Oh man! Now you have to do the same process again. Excellent.
So why it cannot be a capital letter here?
Because I have scripts that are looking at your notebook. If your notebook is capitalized, it's not called notebook, it's capital letter N, notebook. And my script doesn't deal with this. It's a very simple thing. You can name it notebook, but I will not ever look at it. Sure. Thanks for noticing this. Avoid naming things with capital things if you can. So for those simple things, use always lowercase letters. Okay, so other questions. So this is really the extent on how we are using Git. There's no other thing. The only other reason is if you guys were working in a group or in a particular project that has already been developed by previous students, which actually can be the case. In that case, we are using branches, but branches are really simple to be used. And typically, I do actually sometimes the merge for the students into these other branches.
Great, thank you.
So you shouldn't worry about that. This is not that. This is entirely up to you how you do this.
Okay.
The only other question I typically do is let's assume you're missing 6 hours this week to work on stuff. How many hours do you have to work next week?
I would work 12 for sure. 12
hours, that's exactly right. At minimum.
Yeah, no, like,
so this is the question that I always say. I get this. Like, for example, what happens when you are in midterm and you prepare yourself for your machine learning advanced class for the entire week, and you're missing out the entire week and maybe the week before. Every single time you miss a week, you add 6 hours to the next week. But
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So this is and if you work less than 6 hours, you're doing something wrong.
Okay. Yes.
And I'm saying this is the first year I'm actually saying this. And the reason why I'm saying this is because every single student from last semester's class worked 150% on the machine learning class. And that's the reason why the notebook is there. The notebook is there to project guilt to you. Guilt that you haven't actually done your work. So we will be looking into your notebook and projecting guilt to you that you haven't actually worked in this class. Because you worked on machine learning, right? So.
Well, I'm not taking machine learning, so
this is wonderful. So you're already an advantage here.
Yeah. But I'm taking other classes.
Okay. Put it into the concept of into the context of the other classes. Right? So.
Professor, I have a question. So when I say the assignment this week, I thought that I need to put like 3 questions in the notebook of data center. So is there any specific format other than markdown format, like just write down the question, then the answer for one answer, then start another paragraph?
Well, the question is called something like e-datacenter.1. So I think you should have a headline that's called e-datacenter.1, and then underneath you put your solution in markdown format.
Oh, you just had it. Go, yeah.
Yeah, but it said, yeah, place a file here, and
Yeah, so you already did that.
yes,
See,
and
datacenter.md is in your directory.
yeah, and I see for the other number, question number 4, there's also I need to put something in the same file. So
Yeah, so go into your, so now you know, maybe you want to solve e-datacenter 2.b and e-datacenter 4, okay?
Okay.
Go into your e-datacenter file in pycharm, okay?
Okay.
In pycharm, double click on the data center thing, double click. So now you start in a hash, you know, this is hash data center in the first line, hash, no hash data center, hash.
Hash. This one?
It's the character above the 3.
It's the pound key.
Or the hashtag.
It's the character above the 3. And if she has a different keyboard, it may actually, like language specific keyboard, it may not be there. It looks like 2 dashes in vertical with 2 dashes in horizontal crossed out.
Or if you ever played
some
tic-tac-toe.
53 on all keyboards.
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay, the other assignment we actually have is learn the keys on your keyboard.
Okay.
But that's yeah, and then data center, okay, data center, yeah, just write data center. And then enter. And what do we have? An empty line, excellent. So you already get 90 points for this out of 100. So this was the most important exercise. Now you do a hash space e period data center dot 2. Enter. Here comes my beautiful answer. So just write it here. So here comes my beautiful answer. And then hash. So enter. And then enter. Hash. E data center dot 4, whatever that number was. And to be consistent, you may want to capitalize a D in for the data center. And then the next thing, you know, maybe you say hello world, right? Hello world. Now you right click on data center, datacenter.md in the project window, yeah. You say git commit. Now you say my beautiful answer. My beautiful test answer. So, my beautiful test. And then you say commit. And you push this, that's right. And so now what I do is this is how I actually review your assignment. Now going to your repository, I've forgotten actually which repository it was.
227.
227?
Yeah. So then I go in here and
I see then your wonderful answer, and then I click on this, and now I do it just as you would do, and I say, and I do something like this. See, now it's important that you actually synchronize with what I've done. So I stop sharing, you share again. And now you right click on data center. So before you start working or doing a substantial work on your thing, you go to Git and you say repository pull. And then you pull this. And there you go, you see my answer. So naturally, you can do this on the entire directory. So you can actually right click on the SP20 directory and pull from the entire directory to catch anything. So right now, when you do pull, nothing really comes because no changes, but you can, and it says all files are up to date. Technically, you can also do this on the command line, but some students have an easier time visualizing this particular process in pycharm. If you do the command line, don't hold yourself back. I do typically everything on the command line. I don't do too much in GitHub, in pycharm like this way. So this way, we have now documented to you, this is how you interact with the system, how you submit your homework assignment. And the nice thing about this is, you know, just let's assume there is a, you don't have to deal with Canvas to re-upload certain things. You just stay in GitHub and in pycharm, and you do the submission, and we catch it. We see it. I get actually email notifications for your changes in GitHub. Are there any more questions? You can already propose a chapter that says this, I want to investigate AI cloud services on Amazon.
Okay, okay. Because I was just confused
if we can't have everybody doing everything, right? I think it would be not a clever idea that you spend the rest of the semester researching for every single cloud, every single AI service. So what we want you to do is we want you to figure out, okay, there's AI services on Amazon. Here's a list of AI services. This is the AI service that I would like to report on.
Yeah, but then, Professor, we see that it's like an ocean of services that are provided right now. So, what should we, and how should we narrow the search, or is there a particular area we should look into? Because right now everything is AI, right? So
I'm so glad that you used the ocean as a paradigm to describe this. You just jump into it and you cling on to one of the things that you just randomly find.
And, okay.
Something that you are interested in.
Okay, so it doesn't matter, right? It's I mean,
it doesn't matter which one you are looking into. It's that's the reason why we have 40 students. There should be enough for 40 students to have a different topic.
So right, so that's what I see. AI as a service, AI AAS, right, and then AI as a platform. Then there is like this autonomous, AI-based database from Oracle.
Yes,
I mean it's plethora.
Yeah, then you if this is a thing that interests you, then you just write about that.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
There could be another thing. Is this is like, for example, you may actually have heard about that one here. So just to give you another thing, this would actually also qualify. So this would also qualify, because this is actually an EOT device that can be hung off as an EOT, and the EOT devices are implicitly connected to the cloud. So this could also qualify as one of the things. Or if you were to already decided that you want to do the Raspberry Pi project instead of a cloud project, then you can use AI services on the Raspberry Pi.
Mm-hmm.
So we are super flexible here.
Hi, Professor.
Yeah.
So for the data center assignments, can we put the solutions in the GitHub and commit, or do we need to do it in the pycharm?
You can just directly write it in GitHub while using the editor. I just showed you today a mechanism on how to do this in pycharm, but you don't have to use pycharm for that assignment.
Okay.
And just be aware that you know, if you lose network connections, you could be losing your document. So I would be writing it in some kind of editor locally on your computer first, before you add it in bulk to your GitHub repository.
Okay.
Because it's a fairly long text, right? And then what we found out is that Notepad is really not a good editor. WordPad is not a really good editor. So we found Emacs, VI, pycharm are really good editors. pycharm has the advantage of you being able to do markdown. I think Visual Code has also markdown editor. But what you're doing is really up to you. That's your decision.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other question? Any other things? Don't hesitate to ask on Piazza. And again, this class is not to convince your professor that you know something that you don't know. This class is about me trying to achieve that you can achieve your best, while I identify gaps that we need to fill in the first half of the semester so that you can be very successful in your project.